Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brian McElfresh here with the CFB Dynasty podcast. Recording here on a Saturday night with Zach Tao. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing great. Got to go make the 45-minute drive to Gainesville today and watch Florida lose to Kentucky on senior night. But hey, no surprise, really. No surprise. It's just basketball. Like spring games coming up in a month or so. It's way more important.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're talking about the top 50 quarterbacks. Our first rendition of the rankings here. We're going to be releasing. So we just launched quarterbacks. We'll be releasing running backs, receivers, then tight ends, then our top 200 in order with tiers and everything. So quarterbacks always the most important position to get right, to nail when you're drafting. You've been in some mock drafts, Zach. So has anything surprised you so far on the quarterbacks?
In the two, well, I guess I've been in a mock, but I've been in two best balls, and it's a little different in a best ball. But still, I have been surprised at a few of the quarterbacks that have gone pretty early. Like, I guess, like Bryce Young's always going to be one of the top quarterbacks. I get it. And I've talked about it on previous podcasts. I just don't know that I would take him as my first quarterback. If he fell to me and like in the second round, I'm like, you know what? I can't go wrong with Bryce Young. But I think if you're going to top 5 pick and you're going to go Bryce Young, man, like you really need him to have a season like he had last year. And I don't know that look, it's Alabama. You know that they're going to score. You know that they've got all the talent in the world. But eventually you think like they have to replace these receivers they keep losing. And eventually one of these years, it's not going to work out the way it did. Jamison Williams is a freak athlete. Like Burton might be that guy. I just don't know that we're sitting here thinking, is Jermaine Burton Jamison Williams?
No, I don't think he is, but he's definitely a different player. But I think he is every bit as effective potentially.
But then that next question becomes, okay, then who's Mechie? Right?
And you know they've got the talent. You hope
absolutely
some of them heard Nick Saban. You know he planted that out there on purpose when he blasted.
He said they didn't take advantage of the national championship game opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And you know there will be some guys that step up. Ja'Cory Brooks would be one of them. I know my guy Javon Baker transferred out to Kentucky, so won't be him. Yeah. But there's so many guys on that depth chart that could easily be John Mechie.
And the portal's not over yet.
Yeah. That's one of the big surprises, I guess, for me is the way Bryce Young goes. Caleb Williams also has been going really high, and you understand it because he's familiarity with Lincoln Riley, potentially Mario Williams. I mean, being his top target. I just don't know if that just immediately makes him a top 3 quarterback. You know what I mean?
I agree. I'm not taking him super high. He could be. Like, absolutely. He's got that upside, but absolutely. Dang. I mean, he was at Oklahoma, same coach, amazing receivers, and struggled last year during different parts.
Struggled in the way that you didn't expect them to struggle. Like, he still put up points. Don't get me wrong. He was kind of he ran the ball a lot, got a lot of touchdowns that way, but like his numbers weren't the old Kyler Murray numbers, the Baker Mayfield numbers, the Jalen Hurts numbers. They weren't that. So maybe he is that guy. I just don't know that I'm drafting him that high.
Yeah, I think he'll progress. Like really what a lot of the teams, I think Kansas State, they just took away the deep ball, which he loves to throw. Mm-hmm. And the Eric Gray's like out, in the flats for an easy 25-yard gain, and he's just not even looking at him. So I think those are some things that are fixable in that.
Like
different from DJU potentially. We'll get to that.
We'll get to him. I got a lot to say about him, but if I'm drafting and you're asking me who I'd rather to take a flyer on, you call it a flyer, Caleb Williams or Jackson Dart, I think I'm going with Jackson Dart.
Yep.
Right? Like
I think so.
I
don't know. The weapons are better at USC.
Correct. But I think the system right now that Kiffin has in place at Ole Miss is quite impressive, especially for quarterbacks.
I'm so excited for Jackson Dart. So I had in my couple dynasty leagues that I have Dart and I have Zach Evans, and I'm super stoked that they both kind of ended up there at Ole Miss. It's going to be a fun fun combination, which is going to be totally different than last year. And then who's the guy that steps up for Dart? Is it Mingo, who I drafted too early a couple of years ago? But maybe he becomes wide receiver 1 for them. Maybe not. Again, the portal is still open for them, so we'll see.
Well, I know I've talked about guys that that are kind of high up. Guys that you want me to talk about some guys that have kind of been drafted later?
Well, let's. Yeah, go for it.
Well, one that I Dorian Thompson Robinson, right? Like he at UCLA. I feel like he's being underdrafted, and I was the one who drafted him in the latest best ball. And I got him when did I get him? I got him ninth round, middle of the ninth round. I think the second one I did, I got him 10th, 12th round, somewhere in there. And I feel like he could easily be a top 15 quarterback.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And I'm grabbing him in like the 25-30 spot.
I've got him at 14 right now.
Yeah. So I haven't even really studied these rankings, but I feel like he's getting really good value, especially right now. Maybe not so when we get closer to the season and, reports come out, how he's looking like, the Heisman campaigns all start hitting Twitter and all that stuff. So,
yeah. And you said the key word there, value. And that's one of the things we really hit on the post, if you go and read it, where we took the, last year's data and we're looking at the tiers as if they were broken up into, groups of 12, like a standard fantasy league. So if you look at the top tier of quarterbacks, tier 1, the top 12 guys, they averaged 35 points per game. The tier 2 guys... Yeah, thank you. The tier 2 guys average 28 points per game. So if on average you're playing against a tier 2 guy and you have one of those tier 1s, that's a 7-point per game advantage at one position on average going into the season.
Yeah, sure.
Also, within that tier 1, Bailey Zappy was number 1 last year with 43 points per game. There was a 13 fantasy points per game gap. Zappy versus the 12th guy, Carson Strong, who averaged 30.6. So if you get one of those elite quarterback ones, which who's elite this year? Well, I can't wait to talk about that when we get to the top of the list. But I really think it's just one right now. That's like proven and ready.
And even with that one, he could have games where he doesn't do much. Because he doesn't have to.
Doesn't play into the second half.
That's kind of my point. Like he may not even throw the ball but 12 times, and now you're just sitting. But we'll get to him.
But yeah, like with Bryce Young, like you're saying, we're not saying he's gonna do bad. It's just you've got to draft him at the right value. And for us, the metric that when we are looking at rankings, what we're talking about here, especially when we do our top 200. With all the positions in there, fantasy points per game earned. How many points are you getting as compared to a tier 1 of that position? So if you're taking like the easiest one, I think to talk about, like we've hit on, a few times, Brock Bowers, and Mayer, from Notre Dame. Those two guys are projected to, have a substantial lead. Like they're on a tier by themselves. They're drafted in the 2nd, 3rd round versus other tight ends going in 7th, 8th, 9th round. So if you can get one of those two guys, are you getting 10 points per game better than the guys going in round 7, 8, 9?
It's a good question, and not to try to deviate much off the quarterbacks, but Andrew and Chris and I had talked about it on the Burning Red Shirt pod about Bowers. If you had the choice of taking Bowers in the second or Mayer in the third, I probably lean Bowers still. But if Mayer goes fourth, fifth round, I'm taking Mayer.
Yeah.
And honestly, Mayer could be great in the third round versus Bowers. I just think that where these guys go really determines the value of your pick. Because if you're trying to draft like a Bryce Young and you have, let's say you have like the fourth pick in the draft, do you take Bryce Young? He's probably one of the safest picks on the board. But is it the best pick?
Right.
And I'm not sure that he is. Now, if you're 8th, 9th, 10th, I'd say honestly probably go for it. If he's still there, take him, because now you know you're set at quarterback. You know he's going to put up numbers. May not be like last year numbers, but he'll still be probably top 10 numbers, right? So I don't know. I think the value does. Where you pick matters. What type of league you're in. If you're in a one quarterback league, you can wait on quarterback.
Yep.
You don't have to. You can wait for 15 to go, and you can grab 2 tier 2 quarterbacks, have the 2 best tier 2 quarterbacks, and have your loaded running backs, receivers, tight ends, whatever.
Totally. Based on last year's data, yeah, if you didn't land one of those elite tier 1s, tier 2, so we talked about the huge 13-point gap between, like, just within tier 1, but tier 2 and tier 3, all of those combined, there's a 3 points per game gap only. So that is a key metric to look at to know, I should be loading up on running backs, receivers, tight ends, whatever.
If you can't get one of the top tier guys, just hold off and wait, because there's a giant block of quarterbacks, or any position really. There's usually a giant block that there's not much deviation in between the top of that block and the bottom of that block.
And it's hard not to get caught up on names. We all have names that we love, and go get the guy that you really like or feel great about. But yeah, statistically, not much of a difference there. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to win you money or help you win your league, whatever.
Right. There's one other quarterback. I don't really know how much of an opinion I have on him yet, but Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. I feel like he's getting drafted where he's getting drafted. He got drafted in the 4th round of this best ball. And I'm not saying it's a bad pick, because I don't really know what to think yet. He's coming off the injury and all that stuff. He's going to a new school, but it's not Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma anymore.
Right.
So it's almost like he's getting drafted as if he's a part of that. And I know Oklahoma's got a bunch of talent. Like we talk about Alabama, we talk about Ohio State, the Clemsons, like all those schools have a lot of talent. But you're bringing a whole new coaching staff in. As a matter of fact, the head coach, it's Venables, right? He took that job?
Yep.
He's not an offensive coach. So I'm just not really sure if I'm taking that chance.
Yeah, I'll tell you who I've got above and below him, and let me know who you like. So,
you want me to scroll down to the rankings?
Sure, go for it. 14th there, we've got DTR, and then Gabriel, and then Van Dyke.
I'll stop at 10 there, so I know people can't see the top 10 yet. All right, so you say, okay, yeah. So Gabriel at 15, DTR at 14, Van Dyke 16. Like I don't mind Gabriel at 15. I really don't. But I feel like let me see where he was taken in my.
And it is your draft that determines the value on where you should take these guys. So yeah, if Gabriel is going in the first 4 rounds, no way I'm touching him. No way.
He went 9th, the 9th quarterback. He's QB 9 in this best ball.
Yeah,
and like if you look at the QB 9 in your rankings, that's Will Rogers. Are you seriously taking Dylan Gabriel over Will Rogers?
No.
I mean, I know that we talked about just blocks, of tier 1s, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, all that. But you're really grabbing somebody that's like maybe upper end of tier 2 and swapping somebody who's in the middle of tier 1. Like the upside, Gabriel has all the upside in the world. Like I don't think that anybody's gonna sit here and argue that he can't be great. I think it's very possible. I just think there's a lot that we still need to find out about Oklahoma and him, quite honestly. If you want my personal opinion, I had nothing to do with these rankings. I don't know that I would rank him 15th.
Yeah.
I think he might be 20, 22 around in there because I personally have an attachment to Daquan Finn. He's one of my favorites. He's got him at 17.
Yep.
I like Van Dyke too.
I like him too, but I want to see what he's like in the new regime there at Miami. That's one of the it's like if you scroll to the bottom, why don't we start there and really dive into the list? But you'll see the portal and the coaching changes, how much they've impacted these rankings. That has made it difficult. There's a lot of unknowns.
By the way, I want to shout out to you because this is really cool. Like, if you go on the rankings and you click this little plus thing here.
So you won't see it if you're on desktop, but yeah, if you're on mobile or a tablet, you'll see the little plus sign.
Little plus, boom. There's this Indiana, Auburn, Virginia Tech. All of these guys are at different schools than they were last year, by the way. I was getting getting to your portal point, but I wanted to throw this in there. Like Levi Williams, boom, Utah State was at Wyoming. Bo Nix.
I mean, imagine if you are a casual fan, which probably no one listens to this podcast is just a straight up casual because
the only D-gens allowed here.
Yeah, we're doing March mock drafts and best ball leagues. So and that's only because it's March. We did them in February too and January, but whatever. Yeah, if you look at the bottom, I think 7 there, they're all new teams. If I wasn't diehard, it would be hard to, remember all these teams and where they went. It would be interesting to kind of take a quiz. But
this is the one that is really intriguing to me. I don't disagree with where you have him. I just feel like it's such a wild card.
Talking Bo Nix here.
Bo Nix. I'm sorry.
44th.
I'm assuming everybody's going to be able to see this, but some people are going to be listening. So Bo Nix at QB 44. He could easily be top 30 or he could be 60. Like, I feel like he has such a wide range of outcomes that makes it really intriguing and when you grab him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he was ultra talented and maybe just had the wrong fit at Auburn. He's had a rough go with the coaching changes and all that, and the pressure of having that, family history there with that school. So yeah, you're right. Like, it could just be a year. We're not saying he's going to be, Joe Burrow, but what would happen if Burrow never transferred? We wouldn't know who he is. He wouldn't be on the Bengals right now. So
look at Kyler Murray, same way.
Yeah, on a smaller scale, Bo Nix could shock people out in the Pac-12 and
that's the point that I made. I made it on the other podcast. Like, Bo Nix, he's not going to be chased by SEC lines anymore. And look, I get there's great athletes in the Pac-12, but let's be real here. Like, defensive lines in the SEC are very, very good. That's pretty much the difference, the biggest difference, in my opinion, between an SEC powerhouse versus a Pac-12, Big 12 team that is really good, but they just don't match up in the trenches, and that's because they have defensive linemen that. Did you see what's his name? Is it Jordan Davis?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
4.82 or whatever.
Ran like a 4.83, 4.82, 40, 318 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, they're not doing that out there in Oregon. They're just not. Yeah. So I hate to say it like this, but I feel like he might have an easier time out there.
Yeah, I agree. Another guy that I really like in this bottom, 40 to 50 range here would be Charlie Brewer going to Liberty. Another transfer.
All of these guys are transfers except your guy there at 42, but we'll go on.
And May. But yeah, everyone else is a transfer. Yep.
That's wild.
So yeah, Richardson's another where Emory Jones said he was going to transfer, but he's still there going into spring ball. Just a new staff. You really, really don't know. He sure as heck looked great at different points of the season.
But then he didn't look great at times.
Well, he started against Georgia.
No. I'm not trying to knock him.
But
he came in and you're like, oh my God, why aren't we playing this guy? And then he comes in and then you're like, oh, okay, well maybe that's why we're not playing this guy. Like you could see like it's like, I don't want to say it was Jekyll and Hyde, but it was like we know he's got more upside than Emory Jones, but he's a little raw still.
Yeah, it was the difference between passing against USF and Georgia. That was it.
Yeah,
me.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Another
one, he's at 40, Spencer Rattler. I'm avoiding him, not because I don't think he's good. I need to see more from South Carolina. Like I need to see, and Andrew talked about it on the Burning the Red Shirt pod. He is very high on South Carolina. They've had a lot of transfers coming in. Matter of fact, they got the wide receiver from James Madison, I believe. Don't remember the name, forgive me, but I think they've kind of loaded up in the transfer portal. Sorry, soccer's on my mind, so it's I got that's there. But anyway, Spencer Rattler has some potential there to be like he's at 40. He could be a top 20 quarterback. Like there's a lot of guys down on the bottom end of this list that could easily shoot 20 spots up the board.
And this is where the portal has really thrown college fantasy rankings into like I don't know. It's just there's a wild card effect that yes, Bo Nix, he could kill it. Anthony Richardson could end up being top 15. Brewer could. Rattler could. DJU could. There's some really good players here. Like Zach Calzada, we have at 49th. He's going to Auburn. They're probably the biggest wild card in all of the country with what's going on there. But he beat Alabama last year.
By the way, the wide receiver is Antoine Wells from James Madison that transferred to South Carolina. But sorry, it was bothering me. I had to get that out there. So, but yeah,
and Drake May at North Carolina at 43. Hey, maybe they're just going to be a year late to pop. And maybe this becomes they were a darling in the preseason magazine world last year, and our rankings probably reflected that, and rightfully so. But then, hey, maybe this is the year for them.
Well, if you think about it, you're talking about North Carolina?
Yeah.
Like Howell was what, a top 5?
Oh, he was top 5 for sure.
Top 5 quarterback. Why, if the system doesn't change, let's assume the system is the exact same. They've got good talent at wide receiver. I think they've kind of still got some talent at running back. He could easily be a top 15 quarterback. If he plugs right in and plays. Not saying he's Sam Howell, but hey, why not?
Yep.
Right? Like the potential is there. Like a lot of these guys, there's potentials there. Grant Wells, like he was great at Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he goes to Virginia Tech, and you're like, okay, I don't know about all that. But it's kind of a wait and see with a lot of these guys. But I think the big one that we need to talk about.
Before we get there, I just want to at least mention what's going on at Arizona. Jaden DeLora could be really good too, potentially. Like they were able to pull Jacob Cowing, surprisingly. Florida was going after him. A couple other big schools were going after him. And Arizona got him. They had a couple guys in the, I think, Under Armour All-American game, or at least one playmaker, super quick guy, 4-star athlete, picked Arizona. Like they've got something going on there to kind of turn things around. They're going to be a fun team to watch for college fantasy football. Someone you normally ignore. But
is there any way, speaking of Cowing, is there any way you can trade him back to me? In Dynasty?
Yes.
I grabbed him the year before you joined. Yeah, if people don't know, like Brian joined the league. I had an owner drop out, and he just graciously took a team that wasn't great. We'll go ahead and put that out there. It wasn't great. And I traded him. I don't even remember what the exact trade was. I didn't hate my end of the trade, but like I gave Cowing because I felt like his upside was limited at UTEP, which I think most people would kind of agree that his upside was limited. And he actually exceeded expectations. And now he's going a place where he's probably their best player, best weapon at a better school with a better quarterback. Like this is going to be potentially a great situation for you because you have him on your dynasty roster, but I'm more so for him in Arizona. But we won't talk about him too much because, But all right, we'll move on. Quarterback 39 is where you have him listed as DJ Ooyoung. I love where you have him. I think it's fair to where you have him. I just feel, and we talked about this pre-recording of this, I just feel that if he is as bad as he was last year, there's no way he finishes the season as their starting quarterback. There's absolutely no way. The coaching staff, if they roll him out there starting the season and he's their starter, he has to be showing them something. Either that or the guys behind him are just trash. I'm saying that kindly, but I think everybody's trying to get that 2020 season where he came in for Trevor Lawrence. Was it 2 games that he played? I think
maybe
he was
1.5, something
1.5. Like the Notre Dame game is what sticks out to everybody. Yeah. Clemson won that game with DJU at quarterback. And DJU didn't play poorly. He played well. He played as if, you know what? Maybe it's not Trevor Lawrence that's good. I mean, it kind of brought those questions like, you know what? Maybe it's just Clemson's just good all around and Trevor Lawrence is better than – or makes Trevor Lawrence look better than he is. And then you get to that last year. And it's an absolute flip-flop of that. He looked absolutely lost. He didn't look confident making his throws. It just really looked bad.
Yeah, and to kind of go, so he started off 2 against Georgia. Really, really rough game to open the season against that defense. That doesn't happen this year. So if you look at their schedule, because you're thinking of momentum, right? Like, okay, what if they open up with a few hard games and he really struggles? Are they going to turn over to the freshman Klubnik? Are they going to turn to the former Clemson 5-star that transferred back, Hunter Johnson?
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah, they open with Georgia Tech, which should be fine. Should be a fine warm up early game, and then they play Furman and then Louisiana Tech, and then they go on the road at Wake. Like their schedule's pretty favorable, and I think
if you don't know what you got by Wake,
yep,
I don't know. I'm hoping, and I think he will be better. And I said this pre-recording. I think a lot of it could come down to the strictly like focus. Like, look, it's not as easy as you thought it was going to be. Look, you came in for Trevor Lawrence, you played great, and that's awesome. But now that you're the starting quarterback, teams prep for you, and you have to be one step ahead. And I don't think he was putting in that work to be one step ahead. And I think that could be part of the reason he struggled. So maybe he learns. He's got to sit down and say, look, I was terrible last year. I got to be better.
The other thing that we don't know the answer to is, did they get a guy in the slot yet? A great tight end would help him out a lot. I don't know if they've got that. They certainly haven't taken it through the portal, which, most teams, all the great teams, at least other than Clemson, seemingly are doing it. Alabama, they've only taken a few, but they've taken the best of the best.
But
it's going to be an interesting one. You're right.
I'm hoping, it goes back to a couple of these other guys. Like, I'm hoping that since I own them in Dynasty and like, I hope they turn it around. But like right now, QB 39, You could even argue he could be lower. But I think everybody has to have a feeling that Clemson's got to come back at some point. Like they have so much talent down there that if not now, when?
Yep.
So I think, like you said, that schedule's really favorable. I'm not even sure if he struggles in the first couple games, I don't know that he makes it to Wake. But like you said, who's going to play for him? And I don't know the answer to that, but we can move on now off of him.
Yeah. So Pitt, quarterback 38. We've got Keaton Slovis transfer from USC. That's an interesting one to see if they can kind of pick up where they left off with Pitt and keep that going. John Reese Plumley from Ole Miss to UCF, and
that's an interesting one, right? Like, I feel like he could either be just to the moon quarterback, like you're going to draft him probably 12th, 15th round ish, and then he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, or he's going to be playing tight end by mid-season. Like, is that not possible?
Oh yeah.
Like he was playing wide receiver for Ole Miss before he transferred. Like he's clearly a great athlete. I just want to know we're projecting him as the QB 37, but what happens if he doesn't even play quarterback?
Right.
I think he will. The precedent's already been set with him that he can play wide receiver. And if they feel like they have a talent, if they're short at wide receiver and they have another quarterback kind of ready to go, why wouldn't they move him? Get the best player in the field at all times, right? Like,
it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I heard a lot about the other guy that they had from Hawaii. That I think he's still a backup there, but maybe Plumley doesn't win the job, and that's one of those things where these are the spring rankings, y'all. Right. So these are going to change a lot before you're, drafting here, like going into August and whatnot. So, anyone else here stand out to you? You've got some boring picks to me. Like
some of these guys are kind of like, I like Cameron Rising. I think I like Utah. I like what they've got going on there. I think they're just a quiet, really good team. And he kind of came alive that last 4 or 5 games for them where they beat Oregon twice. They go to who they play in the who do they play? They play Baylor. Who do they play? They didn't play Baylor. Who do they play?
I don't know, but to me, they're not a quiet, good team. I can't believe Whittingham's been there so long. Like,
I say quiet because
offered him.
I say quiet more so because they always seem to be good, but nobody ever talks about them.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy. They're always disciplined in fantasy football. Their defense is like a mainstay. They're a staple to be a top 10 college fantasy defense.
And to answer your question about like Whittingham, like why hasn't he gone somewhere else? Maybe he has been offered and he just likes it there.
Totally. Yeah, I love it.
I mean, if you were a head coach, sorry, we're kind of going off track here, but if you were a head coach and you had been successful where you are and you're getting paid millions of dollars to do this, his job's safe, right? Yep. He's not going anywhere. They're not going to fire him unless he does some scandalous thing. Like, maybe it's not worth to pack up your family and move.
Because they went to the Pac-12 with him, right?
I believe so. I think so.
But yeah, he's making 4.1.
Yeah, they did.
4.1 mil a year, and he's killing it there.
Like let's just say Auburn fires Harsin. Very possible. That they go to Whittingham and offer him $8 million a year.
Yeah.
Does he turn it down? Maybe he doesn't turn it down, but like that's the kind of money I feel like it would have to take for me to move.
Right.
Like I'm already making $4 million a year. Like if you're gonna offer me $5 million, I'm like, you know what? I'm good here. That's just my opinion. Hey, maybe there's probably a lot more to it. Getting your kids moved around. Like I don't know how old his kids are if he has kids, but there's a lot to that. But go on.
Yeah,
Let's move on the list.
I'll get an up close look at them. They open up in the Swamp week 1. That'll be a fun one. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. And I'll definitely be going out there.
What are you going to do when Utah wins? I'm just kidding. I'm
not prepared to answer that here. March 4th or whatever. I'm not prepared for that kind of.
But you wouldn't be surprised if they won because they're a good team.
Correct. Like, they're a really good team.
Take the fan cap off, right? Take the Florida fan cap off, and you say Utah, Florida. That's a good game.
Great game. Yeah.
Right.
It's not going to get the publicity of, a Georgia, Clemson, and North should it, but it is a really good game.
Right.
And they're the type of disciplined team who can come in and win, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, Ellaby, Sean Clifford, Will Levis, Stetson Bennett, all kind of boring to me there until you get to Garrett Schrader at Syracuse, who is undergoing a change, whatever, on the offensive side of the ball, where, last year they really featured their freshman running back, and he's going to be probably a top 10 running back, Sean Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
However, not for us, because it looks like they're going to shift to more of a open, like, passing style game.
Dino Babers type.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call air raid, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of sad for Sean Tucker because he was so good in his role.
It makes you wonder, like, if he takes like the Washington State running back role. I know it's not Washington State. I'm just saying like an air raid type style where he gets a lot of targets, where they're not handing him the ball a lot, but he's going to get a lot of touches that are essentially runs, but he gets 75, 80 catches in the season.
Yeah, he could. But Schrader might look odd to a lot of people there at 31st, but it's one that could climb, but I think it's about right for him.
Mm-hmm. Spencer Sanders, I'm never excited about Spencer Sanders. Like, I think he's hit his ceiling, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I agree. He was super exciting as a freshman, and it's just never kind of taken off. And really,
it's not been bad. He's just
I feel that way about Rattler though too.
Yeah,
it's like it isn't what we thought it was going to be, and
that's fair.
So another guy who isn't what we thought he was, but it's just really battled injuries and could end up being much higher than this, could end up much higher, but Miles Brennan at LSU, we've got him at 29th right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's got one of the best weapons in the whole country in Keishawn Butte. New coaching regime taken over. Nothing like really proven at running back. Like, he was really good at quarterback till he got hurt. He was the starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's one to watch.
We know he's not going to be Joe Burrow, or we assume he's not going to be Joe Burrow.
Right.
But top 30 is still pretty good.
Yep.
I mean, if we're being honest, like any of these guys, if you start two quarterbacks in a 12-team league, you're getting like these are the guys that are like first off the bench.
Yep.
Right. So heck, he might start for you, but yeah, I think he has some pretty good potential there too. I like Tua's brother there in Maryland. I maybe because I just like Tua, and I think, this. I don't know. I think if you could get him a little later than maybe where his ADP is, I think he'd be a really good third quarterback for you.
Yeah, I like that. He's got some dual threat ability, and
on a given
29 a game almost.
On a given week, he could be your best player.
Totally.
I don't know what their schedule looks like, but it's Big Ten schedule, so.
Yeah, exactly. We've got Jakovic at Boston College coming back for his senior season with a little bit of pro potential. He's at 27th. And then an interesting one for me, Max Johnson, really Texas A&M. And their freshman coming in that Max Johnson will battle and probably, I would assume, beat out Weigman or whatever. Jimbo had said some like pretty eye-opening things. Who I guess you would say it about your freshman quarterback, but so they didn't even want to go after Ewers because of Weigman, who they have, the freshman coming in. So I really look forward to that battle. But Max Johnson was solid, and I think he'll probably end up with his experience getting the nod. And they've got some more speed. They're going to have a different element to that A&M offense that they haven't had in years past.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, Jimbo's definitely got a team. He's got something brewing down there.
Yep.
I mean, you saw that they beat Alabama this year, but they had some losses that you're like, they probably shouldn't have lost those games.
Yep.
But you can see he can get them up for a game, and if he can get it to come all together, they're going to be a tough team to beat. This one's interesting. Another transfer, Adrian Martinez. Feel like he's been in college forever. I think it's got to be his 5th, 6th year by now.
Yeah.
Goes to Kansas State. Not really a place where you're like, oh, that's kind of regressive in terms of fantasy, right? Like,
right.
The only thing you can really bank on and hope for is maybe he's Colin Klein, and he's just a monster, right? You remember Colin Klein?
Yes, of course.
Like, if he can be that, then sky's the limit. But like, it just seems like he was another player that I remember when he was a freshman, he was first pick in everybody's dynasty draft of the new year. Like, he was the guy. Everybody grabbed him because he's the dual threat. And you had Frost at Nebraska.
I traded up for him. I was so excited to take him in the first round.
Everybody was. You weren't the only one.
Yeah.
But now he goes to a place where you're kind of, it's not really flashy, but you got a great running back in Deuce Vaughn. Maybe they just play read option all game and just either keep it or give it, right? They're just going to run 80 times between the two of them. I don't know, but that's an interesting one. 25th seems. If I'm sitting there needing a quarterback, I don't know that I take him. Because I feel like he's burned us so much in the past that's like, you know what? No, screw this guy. I'm going with somebody else.
I totally get that, but he came on strong. He came on pretty strong last year. Like, he averaged 31 a game.
That's great. And that's really good. And I think the problem he has is, in our minds, we always have this bar set for somebody.
Oh yeah.
And when they don't reach this lofty bar of expectations that we have, it kind of diminishes our opinion about them, whether it's fair or not. It's just the truth, right?
That's the truth.
That's with anything, right? If you have expectations set, you don't meet those expectations. Now I'm like, okay, and now we move on. Even though you might have been really good, but you weren't great like we projected you to be.
Yep. So we'll skip ahead here a little bit. 24th, we have Brett Gabbert. 23rd, Seth Hennigan.
That's going to be an interesting one.
Yep.
That could go either way for me. Memphis, they bring a lot of talent in, especially in the transfer portal. But you lose Calvin Austin.
Yep.
I don't know. I think I'd wait and see kind of who emerges there. They got running backs. See, they have a stable of running backs.
Who's it gonna be?
I'm not necessarily worried about who's it gonna be, but you have. So, well, we are if you're drafting a running back from there. Yeah. But I'm more so talking about the offense in general. Yeah. If you have 5 running backs that are really good, why are we throwing the ball?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you have, I know college coaches are dumb and they don't even know what they have. But if they have 4 or 5 running backs that could start almost anywhere, why wouldn't you feature them? We have uncertainty at wide receiver. Let's just run the ball. Why wouldn't they do that? Now, I know that probably won't happen, but especially when you're trying to figure out who's going to take Calvin Austin's place. I mean, Javon Ivory, I have him in Dynasty. I think he's going to be a pretty good player, but you need more than one.
Yep.
So I'll move on to the next one. Quarterback 22, KJ Jefferson. I like KJ Jefferson. I probably shouldn't like KJ Jefferson as much as I do, but I watched him play like 3 or 4 times last year, and I'm like, you know what? That guy is a tank.
He is. And Arkansas is fun, man. With what Pittman's doing there. It's great.
And I know they lost Burks, but I think they're pretty loaded at wide receiver.
They got the top receiver, at least coming out of high school, Jaden Hazelwood from Oklahoma when he came out. But he hasn't lived up to the billing, but hey, it's another fresh start. You never know. He's battled some injuries and things. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. We've got Devin Leary at 21.
He had such a surprising season. Like if you go look at his numbers, like 34, almost 34 and a half points per game.
Yep.
That's wild. And people probably, if you're not a DGen, like you probably are like, who? Devin Leary? Who? The NC State? Really? Like, but his numbers were phenomenal. So, I mean, I don't know if he does it again, but hey, you gotta rank him accordingly, right?
Yep.
You have no reason to think he's gonna like regress significantly. But yeah, he had 35 TDs to 5 picks.
That's awesome. Yeah, he was
unreal.
Great. And just a year ago, he was in like a quarterback battle, but no, he's taken that over. He's NC State. He's just completely solid. Great player. 20th, we've got, if you haven't watched a lot of Incarnate Word football, you might not have ever heard of Cameron Ward, but he transferred to Washington State. He comes in at number 20.
Man, I don't. Was this pre-show or was pre-recording or was this pre-recording? And in one of our mocks or our best balls, whatever, he went like 4th round, and I can't. Maybe it's not dumb. It could be great, but like we talked about, if we talk about like value, I don't think you're getting the value of him there because he would then have to be a top 10 quarterback. If you're taking him in the 4th round, he's got to be a top 10 quarterback. And I don't know that, like, there's so many other guys on this list that we'll get to here in a second, like that I would rather take that gamble on than him. It's not even gambles with some of these guys. Like, I know what I'm going to get out of a Jaren Hall or a Daquan Finn even. Like, I think you know what you're going to get. Like Cameron Ward, who says he's going to be good?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch.
They had a pretty tumultuous coaching situation last year, right? Like Rolovich, they basically canned him for not getting vaccinated or whatever the heck it was, right? Like he was so against the masks and all that stuff, whatever.
Yep.
I'm not going to take a stance on that. They had a lot going on internally. And now you're going to bring this transfer quarterback in with a new coach, all this stuff. Does it work? Man, I don't know.
We'll find out.
I'm sure not taking him in the top 4 rounds.
No, me neither. Definitely not. That would be a bold, I guess, or dumb, whatever. We've got Jaren Hall at BYU, who's really surprising. Just BYU as a program, you really thought, at least I did, that they were going to take a dip after their quarterback went number 2 overall to the Jets or whatever. How am I forgetting his name? Anyways, Jaren Hall, 20 touchdowns.
Zach Wilson?
Yeah, Zach Wilson. 20 touchdowns, 5 picks last year. Averaged just under 31 fantasy points a game as a freshman. So you kind of expect that to incline, keep rising here a little bit going into his 2nd year as the starter. Surprising.
Yeah.
Another one that's surprising to me, 19, Purdue. I've been following Purdue for a while, kind of expecting either O'Connell or Jack Plummer to really take that job. Jack Plummer has since transferred, so it's going to be Aidan O'Connell. He's our quarterback 18, but the coach, Jeff Brom, he was supposed to bring a dynamic passing attack and everything like he's done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Just hasn't really happened. He's, quarterback injuries, like quarterback battles. He's kind of never had one guy go the full season. So we'll see if O'Connell can make that happen this year.
I mean, he wasn't bad last year, though. I mean, like we got him at 18. Obviously, he's projected to be good. He threw 3,700 yards and 28 TDs. Maybe the touchdowns is a little low, but Plummer had 7 TDs. So there's 35 touchdowns in that passing offense. Like, that's not bad. That's almost three a game.
Yep.
That's not bad.
That's valid. Yep. And then we've got your boy
Daquan Finn. Oh man, I grabbed him as a waiver wire pickup mid-season last year because I don't remember the exact situation. I just remember I was kind of out of it as far as my team. Like, I knew I probably wasn't going to win the league, but we have a deadline where, like, after the playoffs start, like, people can't pick up players anymore. You can't just start churning a bunch of your seniors out to go pick up freshmen. Like, so if you're going to do that, you got to do it before that deadline. So I went and grabbed him. Like, he had had a little flash, couple series in one game. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this kid. I'm going to see what happens. And then the other guy gets hurt. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, here we go. And I'm just sitting back watching this guy. I'm like, oh, he's going to be a superstar next year. And I'm going to have him on my team. And I'm going to do some damage with him. But in all seriousness, like, I think he's like that typical dual threat that you want in a college fantasy quarterback. The guy that he might throw for 218 and 2 touchdowns, but he might run for 150 and 2 more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the guy you want. And he's so – I don't want to say he's boomer bust because I don't think that's it. I think his ceiling – he has a glass ceiling in terms of fantasy value. And obviously a max schedule is always something that you like in a player. But that's where I stand on Daquan Finn. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And then at 16, we've got Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, and we've talked about this group, so I'll skip through them. And it's kind of he was amazing last year as a freshman. If the coaching staffs remain the same, he would be ranked higher on these rankings to me. But we'll see how he does there with the new regime.
Because he easily could be a top 10 to 12 quarterback.
Yep. Dylan Gabriel at 15. We've talked about Dorian Thompson Robinson, QB.
Yeah,
14.
I spoke about him earlier. I don't know how you feel really about him.
I like him a lot. I think he's got great upside, but that Chip Kelly offense, it's just probably a matter of time before.
And he came back. Like, a lot of these guys came back for UCLA.
Yep.
When they didn't necessarily have to.
Yeah,
and,
UCLA is going to be a fun one to watch. Other one
Hayner.
kind of out there on the West Coast would be Jake Hayner for Fresno State, who this is one where he's uncomfortably low to me. Like, he's one of those guys who could easily be 10th or even 7th or 6th.
As much as I'm a Boise fan, I hate the fact that he's there, but he is really good. Fresno is really good. And they brought Tedford back, right?
Oh, I'm not sure. I know Hayner dipped into the transfer portal for a minute.
Yeah, well, he had committed to Washington. And then he backed out. Like, as a matter of fact, he did it before the bowl game. Backed out, came back to Fresno, played in the bowl game. Wild, right?
That is wild.
Like, he did one of those pre-bowl game transfers, and then he just changed his mind and went back and stayed at Fresno. But I'm pretty sure Tedford came back. I could be wrong.
I know Jalen Cropper came back, and he's got some receivers to throw to.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, Hayner could be legit. Jackson Dart for me is a super fun one at number 12. We've talked about him at Ole Miss. Always great to be a part of Lane Kiffin's offense. And then quarterback 11, we've got Grayson McCall. He's steady, man. He's going to be a junior this year. 400. He eclipsed the 400-point mark, and he's one of those guys, like you mentioned, who, hey, maybe by the third quarter, he's kind of just handing the ball off or the backup rolls in. That's what hurts him the most.
Something's good for him though. They lost a couple big name targets, but they got Sam Pinckney in from Georgia State.
Yep.
At wide receiver, and I think that's going to help him a lot. I think Pinckney. I know we're not talking about wide receivers, but Pinckney's one if you're looking for a guy to kind of target as kind of a sleeper, if you will, if that's even a real thing anymore, sleeper. But yeah, I think that's going to be great for Grayson McCall.
And then I got some negative feedback from a friend of mine when he looked at the rankings at first. Number 10, we've got Quinn Ewers. What do you think there?
I saw the negative feedback in the group text. I saw it. And I don't disagree with him. I think you're 100% justified putting him there based on the scheme, the offense that you're gonna see. But if I'm drafting and I have a choice between, let's just say, Will Rogers, Ewers, McCall, Dart, those four guys, I don't know that I'm taking Ewers.
I'm based on all the mocks, like Ewers is QB top 5 or 6 on most.
Yeah, I'm not touching him there. Absolutely could be the best quarterback on this list, but I know that like Jackson Dart's upside is way higher to me right now. McCall, I think we know what we get out of McCall. Even Hainer, I would consider maybe taking before him. In a dynasty, maybe not.
Right.
I mean, thinking dynasty, you're thinking, you know what, this kid could be their quarterback for the next 3 years.
Yep.
2 years, I guess, technically, right? Or 3. Is he a true freshman?
I think it's hard to say what he will be.
What they are anymore.
He's got 4 years of eligibility.
Okay, but he probably won't. If he's as good as they say he is, he won't use them all. But if in dynasty, he's like the perfect pick.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
And he's got Xavier Worthy. More weapons to throw to.
Look,
great overhaul.
He might be the best player on this list. He could be the number 1 quarterback on this list, but I don't know that I'm taking him.
Yep.
I'm a gambler, but I'm not. I don't know that's not a gamble I'm taking.
Yeah. Certainly debatable, but Ewers is going definitely higher than QB 10 on average so far.
Matter of fact,
and I love the overhaul of Texas roster. Like they needed it. You saw the one maybe D-line coach or something just blow up on the bus, and someone recorded it last year, and he was saying, "Oh, you know, a lot of you people don't need to be here," and they're not. They're not anymore. The roster turnover is amazing. So we'll see. And Ewers was certainly overshadowed by Caleb Williams, and maybe that is rightfully so, but Ewers could easily end up being the number 1 transfer if he lives up to his potential as the best recruit since Trevor Lawrence or whatever people are saying.
It's kind of a different transfer, though. It's not like he was starting and playing somewhere and then transferred somewhere else. Like it's kind of a Joe Burrow transfer. Well, not exactly, but like Joe Burrow wasn't really playing at Ohio State.
Right.
He goes to LSU, and now he becomes their quarterback and thrives. It's the same kind of situation, right? Ohio State, transfer out, go to another big-time program. Maybe he takes the bull by his horns, so to speak, right? Like that's just the way I look at it. I don't know that it pans out that way.
Yeah.
For him, I hope so, but again, I'm not taking that jump.
Yeah, we'll skip through a couple known commodities. Will Rogers, Mississippi State, Mike Leach is going to throw a ton. That's going to continue. Sam Hartman at number 8.
I took him, as a matter of fact, let me pull it up here so I don't want to lie to you. So in the first best ball I did, he was the first quarterback I grabbed, and I grabbed him real early, probably earlier than I should have. But I grabbed him in the second round. He was the 5th quarterback taken. That I took him as 5th. So we have him at 8th, so it's not really that far off. But I like Hartman.
Yeah, I do too. I like him a lot. The next two I kind of struggled with. So Brennan Armstrong is one who he averaged 45 fantasy points a game last year.
He's got to regress, right?
His weapons are coming back. He's got Wicks back. He's
Yeah.
got everything else. But
Mel Davis is coming back from injury too.
yeah,
Wide receiver. I mean,
but they all 6 O linemen that played in their rotation are gone.
that's
They've got
huge.
a
And
new
Tony
coaching
Elliott's
staff. Yep.
Tony Elliott's the head coach. He was offensive coordinator at Clemson. Does he bring that offense there?
From what I've read, they're deferring to Brennan Armstrong to, make it as easy as possible on him to
Transition, yeah.
which is smart. I've seen a lot of coaching changes over the years, and that's one of the things where, for a year, if the terminology remains the same for Armstrong, it's much easier for him to communicate in real time on the field. So we'll see. The O-line part, though, scares me. Yeah, all 6 of them are gone. So we'll see. Another one that's scary to me, but dang, he's getting drafted high is Hendon Hooker.
Oh, I love Hooker.
I like him. I could totally see the path of regression, though, just as easy as some improvement. Like, that one.
I like Hooker a lot. I think 6th is fair. I think it's 100% fair. Honestly, I might even put him 5th above Caleb Williams because I've already talked about Caleb Williams. But Hooker, I think he just has a really high upside as far as fantasy goes because he's the dual threat. Like if you're going to compare, and I know we did it on our other podcast, him and Bryce Young doesn't run. Not because he can't. It's just he just doesn't. That offense doesn't require him to do so. Tennessee's offense needs Hendon Hooker to do all of that.
Yep. And the number of plays they run too.
Right. That's kind of it. I'm not saying Hendon Hooker's a better player than Bryce Young. It's not even what I'm saying. I think Hendon Hooker, as far as fantasy is concerned, is required to do so much more. And I think that's why his ceiling is higher, in my opinion, than, say, Bryce Young.
Yeah, and I think 2 through, 14 on this list, you're going to see a mismatch or, it's going to be a mix and match.
Like, you could take 10 people to rank those 15 players, and you'd get 15 different outcomes.
So,
or however many people I said were going to
rank. That would be impossible mathematically, but I get your point.
I was like, wait a minute.
Caleb Williams at 5. They've got great weapons at USC. Who's going to be wide receiver 1? Nobody knows.
Who's going to be wide receiver 2 and 3? Like they have so many receivers. I think they have 12 on the roster that are scholarship receivers.
Yep, Taj Washington's another one to watch out for. I know everyone's hot on Gary Bryant Jr.
Yeah.
And Mario Williams, and rightfully so. But
Brendan Rice coming in too.
Yeah, they've got a load of weapons. We'll see if it can all mesh in one off season. And then, how do you feel about QB4 and QB3?
I like them. I personally on the Mordecai train. A lot of people keep saying, well, Preston Stone might take the job. Look, if he does, then so be it. But I think right now, I don't know if you're SMU, how do you bench Tanner Mordecai after the season he just had? And I feel like he could have gone pro and been justified in doing so.
I don't see him getting benched.
That's the way I look at it. I don't know how you bench him. 39 TDs, 12 picks, and I don't know what his rushing stats were. I can pull them up. But, I mean, he had a great season.
Yep. 40 fantasy points a game. Can't argue with that.
He's
one of those elite ones that we talked about.
Question. If, let's say, they bench him, does Preston Stone slide into that spot? Is that spot reserved for the SMU quarterback, or would you rank him, let's say, 12th? If they came out tomorrow and said Preston Stone is our starting quarterback,
I would probably have him top 5 if
exactly. I think you could just put SMU quarterback there.
Right.
right?
Right.
But I think until they give us something that says Preston Stone is the guy, we have to roll with Tanner Mordecai.
If it's even in doubt, come like main draft season, like he will be dropped. Like if he's not locked up the starting job, you can't take him at QB4. You just can't if he might not even start the season.
Yeah, because now you have them both in the top 30.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have both quarterbacks like 30, 31, and you're like, just flip a coin and take whoever you feel.
Yep.
Or take both. I mean, that might be what you have to do. That might be one of those situations where you have to take the handcuff to ensure you get the quarterback in that offense.
Yep, true.
But you asked me about number 3, Malik Cunningham. I think I like Cunningham a lot. If you're not going to talk about those top 2 guys, Cunningham is like the perfect QB1. He's not Lamar Jackson, but in terms of fantasy points, like I think it's pretty close. He's pretty good. It's about as good as you're going to get without being Lamar Jackson, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's hard to ask somebody to be Lamar Jackson. And I only compare him to Lamar Jackson because he's at the same school, Louisville. So I like him a lot. I don't see any reason. I don't see how he's in anybody's or outside of anybody's top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can debate on who you think are better, but I don't think you can justifiably put more than 4 quarterbacks in front of him.
Yep. And at number 2, I've got Bryce Young there, and I hear you. I hear you on the, they're losing Mechie, they're losing Williams, they're replacing it with Burton, and they've got a ton of young talent. But I'm going to bet on Saban to figure it out. I don't think he's going to go into the year without a proven commodity in terms of weapons. The portal is there.
It's absolutely fair.
Yep, the portal is there if they need to hit it before the summertime.
I don't disagree. I think I maybe I wouldn't put him at 2, but if I'm picking 10th, 12th, and a couple of these other quarterbacks are already gone, I'm not going to hesitate and not take Bryce Young.
Yeah.
I don't know if it sounded like I was like hating on the guy or anything.
Nah.
I just feel like with Alabama, one, they could be out of the game early. Because like the top guy we're going to talk about could be out of the game early. It could be 62-0 at the end of the third quarter. He doesn't even touch the ball in the fourth quarter. Or they run the ball because they can do that. If they absolutely just wanted to run the ball, it's like they showed, honestly, like they showed when Mechie went down. Brian Robinson was not really a big factor in that offense until the receivers started dropping.
Yeah, and he was hurt too.
Yeah, and they ran the ball pretty well. Yep. So what makes them just throw it 100 times now? Like Bryce Young might just hand the ball off, and they can just control games that way. I don't know that they will. They've got a lot of turnover at, like you said, wide receiver. Heck, coaching staff again. Like at what point does that take a toll?
We've been asking that for years.
we say it for years. I get it.
Yeah. I
don't know. Like they're losing offensive line too, and it's easy to say like, oh, with normal team that's going to be a problem. Like you were talking about Virginia, they lost all but 5 or 6 offensive line that they had.
Yep.
Alabama could do that and replace it with a whole 5-star line. I get it, but it's not the same. Like it's not the same line. It would take some time to get that line together and playing well. But
yeah, Bryce Young, I think he's a special dude, and I think they'll figure it out. We'll see. Will he be quarterback 2 when we start the season? Hey, I mean, there's definitely room there for Malik Cunningham. I don't think there's any question that it's definitely a debate, and you could, depending on what your league, how your scoring system is, hey, maybe it favors Malik a little bit.
I think that's part of it too. Like Bryce Young's passing numbers were insane, but then you go look at the rushing numbers, and in all honesty, as a matter of fact, you guess how many yards Bryce Young had last year in 15 games? The exact, I bet you will never even guess. Even near
4,000 yards.
No, rushing.
Oh, rushing yards, 29.
0.
0.
He had 81,
Yeah.
81 attempts for 0 yards. Now, I know he had 3 touchdowns, but they were probably a little short on the goal line, 1-2 yards out. He got out, scrambled, ran it in, whatever. But he's not running the ball. And we've talked about it on other stuff. Like, until you get that, like, Cunningham's going to run the ball. Hooker's going to run the ball. Hartman's going to run the ball. Those guys are going to run the ball. And that's the quickest way to score points as a quarterback. Just churn up some rushing yards.
Yep.
Right?
And especially if you're in one of those leagues too, where it's like your quarterback passing touchdowns are 4 points instead of 6.
Yeah.
That alone, you would have to bump a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. See, on mine, I always do 6.
Same.
But again, I don't hate Bryce Young there. I think it's okay. It's fair.
At number 1, CJ Stroud for one of the most incredible offenses out there. Elite receiver group. If you think about just the last few years, it's insane. The receivers they have had, but yeah, even this year with a couple of studs leaving with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, they're loaded for CJ Stroud and Ryan Day at Ohio State.
I love CJ Stroud. In the best ball, the first best ball that I did, I had the first overall pick. Or was that a mock that I did? It might have been the mock I had. And I took Trevion Henderson, but I was back and forth between taking Henderson or Stroud. I just felt like you get the skill position, you can get the best quarterback available coming back. That was kind of the way I looked at it. But like, if there's a guy that a quarterback that I'm considering taking first overall, it's got to be Stroud.
Yeah. I think he's the only one I'd take in the first round, depending on how the draft was going and everything. Yeah. But yeah.
See, and I'm not trying to get a whole lot into draft strategy, but a lot of who you draft is dictated by who's already gone.
Yep.
So if you're sitting in the 10th spot and 3 quarterbacks have gone already, you're like, well, hell, I better grab one.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't grab one, it's going to be a minute before it comes back and I can get another one, right? Like,
yep.
So, I think Stroud at number 1 is I don't know how you don't take him.
Yeah.
Quarterback 1.
Yep, I agree.
But in fairness, if somebody said I think Malik Cunningham's the best quarterback, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you. If that makes sense. Like, I would plant my flag there in the Stroud camp, but
and it's alongside Ryan Day and that receiver group. There's a lot going right for that offense.
Yeah, and I don't know what their schedule looks like, but I'm gonna look it up because I'm curious what their schedule even opens up with. Give me 1 second. So Big Ten, Ohio State. Okay. They go. Oh, they open at Notre Dame.
Fun.
And then they get Arkansas State, Toledo, Wisconsin, Rutgers at Michigan State. I mean,
nice.
Iowa, Penn State, Northwestern, Indiana, Maryland, and Michigan. Like, they're going to be favored in every one of those games, probably by double digits. Maybe Notre Dame, they're only favored by 7.5, but I think they're favored by double digits in that game.
I agree. Yeah. They're gonna be elite. And then at receiver, with Harrison, the way he came on at the end of the year, to go right along with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But
yeah,
it's gonna be fun. So next we'll be moving on to running backs. So this time next week, same thing, just different position. Man, I'm really looking forward to it, and we'll get this posted out and shared on Twitter and on Facebook in the morning.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll definitely tweet that out so everybody can. And everybody needs to subscribe, and if you haven't already, and follow on Twitter, all of our Twitter handles. I don't know if mine's visible on here, but it's at ZRTau_CFF.
Yep.
So.
Well, I appreciate the time, Zach. We will talk soon.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. See you guys.
All right, later.